In 2000, the Supreme Court deemed it unconstitutional and decided that it would be cruel and unusual punishment to execute someone who lacked moral competence. Moral competence would then be measured through low IQ scores, whether that be the Wechsler or the Stanford-Binet or other tests, would determine whether or not that person would go on death row. The only thing is, though, the further that I looked into it, there was something that was called renorming. So let me see, where does it? Let me see. So a good example was one that I found on APA.org that says, in quotes, let's say that there's a guy on death row, and at school he was tested on the old WISC, which was normed back in 1947 and 1948. If he was tested in 1972, just before the new test came out, then the test would inflate his IQ by 7 points. And a person who normally had an IQ of 68 would have 75 and would now be eligible for execution. So I've actively been trying to educate judicial community. That was within the quote that I just said. So this essentially states that while in terms of the history of psychology for intelligence testing and IQ testing, this can be seen as a huge stride for the psychology community because it's now taking a judicial effect in our court and in our legal system, which is great. Psychology should be taken seriously, statistical evidence should be taken seriously, well thought and organized tests should be taken seriously, and if it could help prevent somebody from death row, then I do see the positive outlooks behind that. However, how it was explained here in the article, it also shows the very serious dangers with relying on IQ test scores to determine whether or not somebody should continue living. As we've stated throughout this entire timeline, multiple times, that most IQ test scores aren't exactly the most accurate. They do carry a lot of biases, whether it be within your social class, within your race, or within your gender, or within your ethnicity.